So, we're back here again. More Resident Evil Requiem, and finally, after many people have, been thinking that Leon was going to be in the uh, game, and people have, been saying, like, oh, Leon's gonna be in it. I want Leon. Is Leon gonna be in it? Like, is Leon gonna actually look cool? Like, oh my god, man, Leon has, like, an eye patch. Leon has this, Leon has that. You know, look. All that stuff was technically just fake leaks. Like literally, there were nothing but fake leaks that people just did not even bother, doing anything like that. So after waiting for a long time, and even though there was a fake leak which nobody didn't believe, um, but there was also another somewhat fake leak. Well, not a fake leak, no. Like there was another one that actually showed somebody actually taking a picture of the Resident Evil Requiem PS5 game being downloaded. Well, he had a beard, and I mean it was kind of official that Leon was technically in the game, and that got people actually hype for it, and it got us hype for it too. I know people have been speculating that we want Leon to be in the game because it ties Resident Evil 2, and Leon was there during the events of Resident Evil 2 with Claire and Sherry, and as I mentioned, Ada too. But that was around the time, when the outbreak happened, and after that, I didn't feel the follow. Um, Claire was trying to literally uh find her brother. You know, she thought he was in Raccoon City, but technically he was not. You know, so it was just basically them trying to survive the zombie horde, bioweapons, and then Mr. X, and then, um, who else? Birkin, which they managed to evade. So, like, they managed to actually get out of the city via by a train. And then we know Claire managed to save Sherry because, she was infected with the virus. And what else? Yeah, she was infected with the virus, but they managed to cure her. And they got out in the nick of time after one of them killed the G virus. And ever since then after the events 2 and 3, basically it was nuked. They just launched a missile heading towards the Raccoon City. But the best thing was Jill, Carlos were already gone, and Leon, Claire, and Sherry were already gone too. you know so that with that being said, we kind of knew for the fact Umbrella was finished and done, because Leon kind of talks about how like Umbrella, the pharmaceutical company, was the one that caused the whole thing, and we know that Umbrella was the one that caused the outbreak, and literally Raccoon City was the area that became nothing but a hot space full of undead walking around and people trying to survive. And well, we already know how it came to be because the rats were the one that were got the virus and then spread it all around everybody. And it's all because that what was it, Hunk and his men were trying to get the sample, and and in a failure, most of them died, but Hunk survived. Um, but anyways, yeah, they ended just doing the whole thing, and now Raccoon City is nothing but in ruins, and now Raccoon City is nothing but just a memory, a horrible memory of that horrible night that happened that nobody does not ever want to remember again. And seeing Raccoon City, the ruins of it coming back again, seemed pretty good. And now with the Game Awards that came around today, they have finally got a chance to show off more of the gameplay trailer. Um, I know I missed to actually watch it, but I kind of want to see like like again like to see like the gameplay of it and more about this new character. You know, we know Grace is the main one, and we know that this like weird dude with this helmet, like is like literally going after Grace for some unknown reason. So, I say without further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at the gameplay for Resident Evil 9 Requiem. So yeah, it's using the same cutscene again.
Hello?
It hasn't been easy. But after much effort, here we finally are.
Who are you?
Yeah, the
I
gold
know
teeth.
now that you're the one that I've been searching for. The special one. The chosen one.
Also, his own was gone.
Talk to me. Is this one like the others? And it's not post-mortem lividity. Hey, I just got a report of a missing police officer. It might be unrelated, but he disappeared near where the fifth body was found.
So that's like pretty sure at the beginning of the game.
Through you, Elpis can finally be set free.
The team has settled on a person of interest. Someone with ties to Umbrella. Victor Gideon.
Grace! Grace!
Victor purchased a building after Umbrella went under. I'll send you the address.
Welcome. Dr. Gideon has been expecting you.
You there, Leon?
There's our boy!
Yeah.
Hey, over here. FBI, what are you doing here?
Would you like to see what's hidden under the hood?
Don't do anything stupid.
Me? Never.
God damn, he is such a badass. Literally.
Think I want a second opinion.
Yeah, we got gameplay of that. And he also gets a damn chainsaw too. Oh man. Okay. So we need to break down this shit right here, like literally. Okay, let me pause it real quick. Let me pause it. Okay. So, uh okay, so you actually see like right around here. Right around here. I mean, he does have the helmet on. Oh, sorry, he has it off. You know. And we actually get to see this one. His name was like Victor Gideon, I think is supposed his name. So we got the name now of our main antagonist, Victor Gideon, right here. And from the way it looks, it does kind of look like, he went through some experimentations because, like, literally, like, his body is, like, literally just, like, messed up super badly. And I really do think like that like we only get to see his like like part of his face. Not to mention like I said before, he has like gold teeth here. And yeah, you see it's like gone now. So it kind of looks like they just like like um edited out like like part to where he has like his helmet on. But I think like we already found out what he looks like due to the photo that Leon technically shows off. So this is the dude right here. So they literally said that like Umbrella went under and he actually purchased the building that, well, Grace is in right now. And we can see like a bunch of like like doctors around here too, that was working under him. I'm not gonna lie, he looks like I'm gonna say this. He looks like Beetlejuice. Literally. He, no joke, looks like Beetlejuice, but like more cleaned up and like he's wearing like like a doctor suit, you know. That's actually what I'm seeing. So we see like right around here that there has been police activity, and now as you may have known in the other previous trailer, in the previous trailer that they actually showed off like months ago, we do actually see Grace, like walking towards like like the whole scene, you know, where like there's police activity, it's blocked off, they're trying to discover like like what happened there. Um, so this is when like it continues on to where she shows up, you know. She talks to the officer, she shows her FBI badge, so we don't know like what they're saying. Um, this right here, I don't. Oh, there's a teeth. I think. Yeah, yeah, those are teeth right there that they must have found, at the scene of the murder. So it looks like like somebody just ended up like like pulling out people's teeth. And then we get to see this like right around here. So we see like some experimentations like like happen like like right around here. I can't really make out like what it is, to be honest, because like it only shows like like just half of it and not the whole thing. But it does kind of look like like some doctors are like literally doing some experimentations. We see like like a bunch of cells. We see like the strand of the DNA, and then we get to see this right here. So White House Chief of Staff Blink from Blink, security clearance level 9, top secret. Raccoon City is Blink. Blink, Blink for the sake of Eplis. Commence Blink. And he literally said something about right here. Alphys can finally be set free. So this is another thing too that's adding like a piece of the puzzle about like like what does have to do with Grace, and what in the world is Project Alphys? And when he said like Project Alpha can be set free, this is where like it gets a little bit of a guessing game right here. Like, what does that have to do in connection with her in this project Elphys? Like, what could it be? Because we're thinking like about something like this right here, to where think about like in past like like Resident Evil games. Like think about like like Project G, which was William Birkin's like greatest creation, to make like this big giant like virus that like can always like what was it, become like an immortal type of virus, like like no matter what happens, like they'll always like like have like instant regeneration or something like that. but like we know what happened like William Birkin because like with Project G went on, we know that like they've been working on it, but then like like some people from like Umbrella, however, wanted like the sample to be taken away from William Birkin because that was his greatest project, and we know what happened because like they come by, they literally shoot at him, and like they kind of leave him for dead, and they end up taking his like his samples away. But he ends up like having one of his samples like with him, and that's when he injects himself with the G virus, and that's when he becomes like this big hulking looking mutated grotesque looking bioweapon throughout the whole time. Like you get to see him like evolve more into like more in grotesque, like you see like how the G virus is able to like mutate parts of his body, like first one you see him like have like a big giant like like hulking looking arm like but the rest like is still human, and then the second time you meet him he looks pretty bad. The third time you meet him he's like way worse, so you don't even see his face no more. And then the fourth one, well, he's long beyond gone, and now the G virus is taking over his body. And then after that, like which is like leading up to the true end of the game, like he becomes like this big giant blob of like ooey gooiness of like you know guts and stuff. So um, that's how like like basically like what Project G was. Um, and then like the first one was Project T, which was the T virus, for the Tyrant in the first game right there. And you know more about that as you go around like the Spencer Mansion and to figure out like what is it, you know, like what happened to like like these like people that were in the Spencer Mansion till you find like that the virus spread around and literally mutated and like made people like become like like one of the Walking Dead. And for also to Umbrella to develop some kind of like big giant you know BOW. And well, I mean they kind of succeeded in, but we kind of know what happens. Like whoever you're playing as, like the tyrant, like technically somewhat, well, technically the tyrant dies from whoever launches the rocket launcher, and whichever like character you play as, and whatever ending you get. Like that's basically how it happens. And I think after that, Resident Evil 3, I think they had like another one called Project Nemesis, and we know how that went down. And 4 was literally, well, 4 was just literally like, like this big giant cult, and they didn't have a project. It was just it was some kind of, like big, well, no. It was like some kind of like, like virus, you know, that was in a dormant state within like like these rocks, and they somehow some way use some kind of like scientific experiments to bring it back and to literally infect all these like like people with the Las Plagas. And there was no project or anything like that, that was like its own thing. um Resident Evil 5, I think their project was Project Ragnarok, I think that's what it was. I don't know. I played a little bit of it, but I do know that Wesker ends up, like getting the sample from like Ada or something like that, and also like discovering about this like these like ancient flowers or whatever, that were the key to like creating the so-called virus. But then 6, I don't know much about 6 to be honest because I never played it, but all I know it's supposed to be one big giant outbreak, and like, and you play like like different scenarios, so I don't know much about it. Um, 7, however, 7 was basically another project called Project Evelyn, and we know they used some kind of like person who was able to manipulate and control the mold, and like this little girl who turned out to be this like spoiler alert, this old woman like ends up taking over the minds of the Baker family, and basically, I think like Lucas like ends up like finding more about like Project Evelyn, and find out more about like, like data and like what it does and what it do, and decide like send it to connections. And well, we know that Chris like technically stops like that plan, but before that happens, Ethan like manages to stop like the whole thing, which was actually pretty good. But you do find out more about like, how Project Evelyn like, came to be, you know. And in one of the DLCs, you do find out like how the Bakers, were technically falling victim to like Evelyn's like mold manipulation. And then like for Resident Evil 8, however, for that one right there, you find out the origins of like how Umbrella came to be when you actually go to Europe. And basically the goal is like just to find like like Rose and um just to defeat like like the four lords or whatever they're called, and I don't think that there's any project under that. Maybe it could be like Project Rose, you know. So now at this right here called Project Alphys, I mean this is a brand new one here. That's something new. I mean, we know already, like in Resident Evil Outbreak, you do play as Alyssa, and well, all you're doing is just like literally just like getting out of Raccoon City. But I know there's like other scenarios, like where you're in the zoo, where you're in the laboratory, where you go to the hospital. But the hospital actually, no joke, does have some like lore with Alyssa Ashcroft. So I mean, kind of wanted to like miss on that. Um, so we don't really know like what Project Alphys can be and what is her connection with it, you know? Because there's got to be something like like maybe Alyssa has done, and maybe like like somewhat passed off like some things. Think about like in the previous trailer where Grace was running away with her mom, but Alyssa managed to like have her suitcase with her, and she hid her suitcase in this big giant painting, and we know that like she is going to have to like literally find the painting where her suitcase is. So I'm thinking like there could be something within that suitcase that she probably doesn't want her daughter to know until like she was probably like maybe good and ready, or probably when like she was like really needed for something about this thing that's been going on. So with like more lore with Resident Evil 9 Requiem, and more about like what's gonna be happening to like Grace, because now it does feel like she's now in the mix of like something like that's kind of happened before like a long time ago, and even though like she saw the death of her mother right before having like right before her very eyes, um, and then she goes to like working for the FBI, and now she's back at it again. So there is like two more to the mystery of like who were those people that were actually pursuing them, and what was in Alyssa's suitcase that she hid behind the painting. And what I'm thinking of is probably it has to definitely maybe do something with, I would probably say this, maybe it has to be like Grace's birth, you know? Like maybe there's something like she must have done, you know, while like she was raising her, watching her grow up, and there was probably like like this group that were probably keeping tabs on both of them until like it was like the time and ready to strike and to take like maybe one of them or both of them down, which well we know what happened already, because like the hooded person like uh when they were staying at the hotel, the hooded person like killed like like that dude with the glasses that ran away, and then everything like started like going like bad, and they're running away, and we see like her placing the suitcase within the painting. They keep running away, and unfortunately like she unfortunately dies to like the hooded guy. But um I don't know if like if Grace like did anything like like hurt him, killed him, or whatever or maybe like that because everything wasn't catching on fire, and I guess like he just probably just ran away and leaving like like Grace you know mourning over the loss of like her dead mother within that whole thing, and it'll probably like like maybe say like like 2 years or 3 years or 4 years later after the horrible events like she went through, which leads up to like what we just seen in the reveal trailer for the new Resident Evil game, um, that happened I think at the Game Awards, to where she is now working for the FBI, and all of a sudden she's given a case to where she has to go back to the hotel her and her mother were staying at, and she didn't want to, but it felt like she had to, you know. And with more to reveal about this game here, we're kind of seeing like like more and more about like what's gonna happen with Grace, because getting into the gameplay now. So we see like her confronting like like Victor, and then like she's running away from him, you know. So we know that's Leon. He's looking at this photo of like of this guy right here, and then it kind of looks like after that, like, like now all she's doing is just like hiding and running away from him. So let me see. We kind of need to get like yeah. So we get to see like more of him, and then we actually get to see again like this big building. We know it's definitely a hospital, and then let's see. So I'm thinking like yeah, because I'm thinking like in one of the trailers like like I think she was the one who was like walking in that hallway, because we were trying to figure out who was this mysterious person who was walking the hallway, and I'm thinking it definitely had to be her. It had to be definitely her. I mean, we're kind of like surprised like she's not affected or anything. I know like Leon with the new look, like god damn this guy. Literally, he cannot be that fucking cool, but he is. So we're definitely seeing like pictures right here. It kind of looks like, like people killed, probably like a zombie. And yeah, there she is right there in the photo, right there. And again, I'm gonna say it again. He does look like goddamn Beetlejuice, you know, just like more cleaned up looking, and with a suit. I mean, Grace, like is like pulled away, and I'm thinking that's probably like like one of the scenes like they took from the demo build, and then confronts like like this big giant mutated looking thing with which people are calling Big Mama, and it does kind of look like around here. I may have to slow this down, man. Yeah. So right around here, like I'm thinking like right around there, she pulls her. She's going to attack her, and then that's when Leon like comes in and saves her. So this could definitely, be somewhere around in the beginning. And some people were somewhat kind of right, and I think I could have been right too, but a little bit of right and a little bit of wrong. Because like people have been saying, well, I've been saying about this right here too. Leon was gonna be coming by and save Grace, but I was thinking like, you know, like somewhere along around in the middle or at the end of the game where, well, no, I think I was saying like, you know, in the middle. I don't know, it's been like way too long. Where he comes by and saves her in the nick of time from this big giant um monster that she's facing, you know. And like I think after like the boss battle with this thing, a cutscene plays, you know, and the monster, you know, like is still not down yet. And she tries to do whatever she can, but the monster, like, you know, won't go down. She tries to do whatever she can, but the monster, like, you know, goes on a rampage, like, you know, throwing everything, doing this and doing that. And like, let's say, like, you know, like, Grace ended up, you know, getting hurt by some of the debris that, you know, that from the monster, like, you know, like throws at her. And right before, like, you know, the monster's about to ready, like, you know, like kill her because, like, you know, she's like down on the ground. Leon out of nowhere, like, you know, comes up and just literally starts, like, you know, blasting away at the dang monster and goes ahead and like takes it down, like, you know, giving like one final blow and ends up saving Grace, you know, from getting killed by this thing. And I really thought that was going to happen, you know, like I really thought that was going to happen, but it kind of looks like it's not because yes, he does actually save her from this big creature, and they do meet, which is very surprising because it looks like this is someone at the beginning of the game. So I'm gonna probably say this here. I'm thinking like, you know, after like, you know, like well, you probably have to escape from like, you know, like that from that Victor dude, you know. You have to probably do something like stealth, and you have to get away from him. And I'm pretty sure, you know, if like he catches you or whatever, you know, I think like, you know, he'll probably like do something. I don't know if it'll be like an instant game over or like he'll do damage to Grace and but you still get away, but you can't do nothing to him because like it'll probably be like, you know, a somewhat scripted type of enemy that like you can take him down, but you can't kill them because within like, you know, the game's code of script, you can't kill him no matter what you do because he is not supposed to die there or like whatever, you know. So that is really what I'm kind of thinking of about like the whole scenario where like, you know, Grace runs away and she's hiding and like Victor is like looking for her, and that's when you probably you have to like, you know, like just get the hell out of there now, you know, but don't make too much noise, you know, stay out of sight and try to escape. And I'm thinking around this time, you know, like pretty sure like, you know, she encounters this big giant monster mutant that like this happens, you know, and she tries to get away but gets pulled, and then this happens too, to where Leon comes in and saves the day. Because, yeah, she's still bandaged up, like, from right there. And it is sort of surprising, you know, like, these two actually meet. So, nobody doesn't even know really if, like, you know, if only Leon is gonna definitely, like, you know, be the only one there, or Jill or Claire is gonna probably, you know, make, like, you know, like an appearance too. We don't know. Everybody just really just wanted Leon to be in the game, and hopefully he was there. And people finally got their wish, so he's in the game. And also another thing is, like, we actually do get to see, like, you know, him driving back to Raccoon City, where the nightmare began. And it feels like, you know, I don't know if like Grace is with him or not, but we see him doing some things right here. Um, we see like pictures of like, you know, like some virus spreading around the body, and that right there. And then we see Grace right here too. But I'm thinking like, you know, he probably went out to do his like own thing. So yeah, there's his location right here, and he's aiming for right here. So this whole big giant white area is technically where Raccoon City used to be at. It does kind of like, feel like, you know, that they didn't do anything with the design towards like all the buildings have been destroyed or whatever. It kind of looks like, you know, like it's still standing up, you know, but we know what happened already. And that's at the beginning where we meet him. And that's where he discovers, like, you know, like the scene right here. And actually, no. Like, this is when like a zombie horde comes by. There's a fucking axe. So yeah, you see like right here, this has all been destroyed by the missile that ended up impacting like right around here, and like all the room, all this like buildings right here are like all down and gone. Um, some of the buildings like like around here are still standing, but it feels like, you know, like everything's like gone through the impact of the missile. That's actually a fucking cool shot, I'm not gonna lie. And then seeing like, you know, like something like this right here, like I don't know why, it kind of looks like, you know, like they're kind of infected like a new virus or something like that, you know. And I think from what they said, like it's now actually like there's a UI right there, so we got like a UI now. And it's actually based off RE4. Like it technically is. Okay, so let's see right here. Let's see right here. All right. So, I'm gonna zoom this in a bit. Okay. So we technically like, you know, like see like right here, you know, that in the bottom right, we see right there our HUD, and we see like, you know, his health, and we see like, you know, he has the axe that he had from the previous scene. So it does look like this is going to be your knife. And we know how Resident Evil Remake was, because like Resident Evil 4, you did had a knife, but the thing was it didn't have any of uh the gauge, you know. But with Resident Evil 4 Remake, it did had the gauge, which technically means that, like, you know, the more you use it, you know, the more it's liable to break. And the more that it breaks, the more like it's getting closer, and you will not be able to use it. Because once it's gone, and you're totally defenseless now. So you got no more knife, and if you use up all your like ammo, you're just really much of a like a target now. Until like, you know, you find some kind of ammo or like whatever, you know. And yeah, seeing it right here, now there's a gauge for it. But I'm kind of guessing like maybe to kind of like rework the gauge thing, you know, to I would definitely say for reals, to make it like more like the durability of it, to make it like not go down like more and more, you know. Because I mean, it is kind of amazing. He ditches the knife, and in return he gets an axe, which is pretty cool, you know. And then we get to see like, you know, his weapon that he has, his crosshair, his health, the ammo. And it does look like there's somewhat aim assist too. And we see him do his famous like kick, a finisher right there too, and then taking the fucking chainsaw and using it. But it doesn't look like, you know, it has anything, you know, like literally. But what I'm thinking of is like, because this guy here, he is the one who has the chainsaw, you know, and we know that he dealt with chainsaws like, you know, oh, he has like a little 5 o'clock shadow right there. Um, he dealt with like chainsaws before from 4. So this is what I'm probably thinking of like right here. Because like he's using his gun. He's doing like, you know, his roundhouse kick. He does a finisher on the zombie here. This is pretty cool. Um, and he has the chainsaw. Oh no, it's right here. Yeah. Yeah. So I think it could be like a one-time thing. Because look right there. It does have it, but it doesn't have like no number or anything. And it's someone doesn't have like a durability gauge or anything like that. So it kind of looks like maybe just maybe he ended up like, you know, killing like 2 or 3 enemies around there. And then when he does this finishing move on this enemy here, it switches back to this right here, the gun and his axe. So I'm probably thinking, I'm probably thinking that when you do kill that dude with the chainsaw, or somehow you do some kind of crit, you know, maybe he drops it. Or when you kill him, he drops it anyway, and you can pick it up, and then you can use it as a weapon. And probably what I'm seeing here is that you could probably only use it after a certain X amount of uses. And after this whole thing is like gone, like after you use it like too much, then I think the chainsaw becomes like broken and you probably can't use it no more. And I'm pretty sure that's what is gonna be happening, like, you know, when you get a chainsaw. Because I'm not gonna lie, this is the first time you actually get to see Leon with a chainsaw. Now we know in Resident Evil 4 there is like, you know, like Gennaro, which is Dr. Salvador, who has a chainsaw. And well, it just kind of sucks, you know, you can't even use it, which kind of bites. But I mean, they were keeping true like Resident Evil 4. And well, also another thing too, there was a GameCube controller that was actually what was it? Yeah, there was a GameCube controller that was in the shape of the chainsaw, which was actually pretty cool. I don't know if that was a pre-order bonus or not, but it actually was pretty cool. But I think it was a little bit too hard to handle it because of the way it looked. Um, the only thing is, like, you could do in RE4 Remake when you're confronting it, like a person with a chainsaw, all you can definitely do is just parry. That's all you can do. I know in the OG you couldn't do anything. Like, if you were too close and, like, you know, you were like reloading at the worst time, you know, then yeah, you're dead. But in the remake, you could just parry the damn thing, no problem at all, which was actually pretty cool. And now in this one here, he actually gets a chainsaw to take down enemies, you know? So they're making Leon more badass now. Like, so damn badass. Okay, so with gameplay wise, we see like, you know, like Grace what she went through, you know? And with Leon, what he's gonna go through, you know? So, to be frank, it does kind of feel like, you know, that he is definitely gonna go through some things on his own way. I don't really know if he's bringing Grace to Raccoon City. I don't really know or not, but I'm gonna be saying this. It's probably a maybe. It's probably a maybe, you know, because he ends up saving her and they actually do meet. But it's gonna probably be like, you know, like a different type of gameplay, however. Because Leon, he's all action. He's like an action guy, you know. And for Grace, she is just a person, you know, who does have like little training, but not that much. So this is like basically like, you know, like how it's going to be. You're playing two characters with two different play styles. One of them, all you're trying to do is solve puzzles while trying to avoid enemies and also trying to literally solve puzzles. But you have to make sure you don't make too much noises because like they're gonna pursue you or anything like that, you know. And with Leon, however, with Leon, he technically is already like, like Ashen guy, you know, like he's already, like doing his own thing. So his is gonna be all action. Grace is just gonna be like, like puzzle, survival, stealth, gameplay. I'm pretty sure Leon's like you probably won't be able to like play in first person. I'm thinking like uh I don't really think he's gonna have like a first person perspective. Because I'm thinking that's only for Grace. You know, like for reals. I'm really thinking that's only just for Grace. Because she's gonna have like either a third person view or first person view, which you can change on the fly. And that's actually pretty good. Because I know like some people prefer to play like in first person, while other people like to play in third person. And it was smart of the developers to literally do something like this right here, to literally like you want to transition to like first person or like oh technically you want to play in first person, play in first person. You want to play in third person, play in third person. Because like some people technically like don't want to play the game like in first person because like we know that like certain people tend to literally get like motion sickness and it kind of like hinders their gameplay and they can't play the game and stuff because like there's too much motion and they don't like it. They'd rather play the game in third person, which is a pretty great thing that they have done. Um, but for Leon, I'm gonna definitely be saying this. He's gonna be like only third person only. I mean, I don't know if it's gonna be first person or not. I mean, that would actually be pretty cool, if you can play like as Leon in first person. I mean, that would be cool, pretty cool. I mean, if they do, they do. They don't, then they don't. Like it's totally fine. Um, but yeah, the whole first person and third person perspective, like was only gonna be for Grace only. Um, but I'm still kind of wondering though if like it transitions. Like I'm pretty sure it will probably transition. I don't want to say like like oh it's not gonna transition or like whatever Like it's gonna definitely be. You play from Grace, from Leon, and then from Leon you play to Grace, and they have their own like gameplay that will stick to them throughout the whole end of the game. And that's what I'm thinking of what it's going to definitely be. You know, because again, his is all actiony, hers is all survival. Well, survival action for him, survival, puzzle solving, but also hiding type of gameplay. And you know what? It seems like pretty amazing for the developers side to really do something like this for like RE9, because now you're playing two characters. And you know what? I think they're taking that from like Resident Evil 2. Because like Resident Evil 2, like in certain parts, like like Leon's story, like after they encounter in a net, like like Leon gets shot, but Ada attends to his wounds, and literally he's like out cold, and then you get to play as Ada, and you like get to use her weapons and what she has. For Claire, um, technically you do get to play as Sherry, but all of hers is basically like I'm talking about the remake one in the remake. But also in the OG too. But the problem is like she's not a person like who's capable of like like battling just like zombies and like BOWs. Nah, like she don't know nothing like that. And the only thing is you're doing is just like like getting away. Like getting away from like these enemies, getting away from these monsters, like just trying to find some like key item to give to Claire, and that's about it. Um, actually no. In the OG, however, like in the OG, I mean, you do get to play as Ada, but you don't like play her that long. Sherry, same thing too, but in the remake, you do for both of them. And then after that, like, you know, once they're done, then you transition back to Leon, or like, you know, you're playing a Sherry, you just transition back to Claire. So yeah, I'm definitely saying for real, like, you know, they are taking like, you know, like something like that, you know. 4 is the same thing too, but you only play as like Ashley, but that's only like a one-time thing, and that's about it. You're done. And then, um, let me see. For 7, you do get to play as Mia after you escape from like the Baker's mansion, which is another transition. It's pretty cool. And 8, I don't think 8 has nothing. I mean, unless you play the DLC, because technically the DLC is like, well, basically you're just playing like, you know, like as Rose, and she discovers like, you know, the meaning of her powers. I mean, that's really it. And now for this one here, it kind of looks like you're gonna probably maybe just maybe like, you know, like switch out to like these characters. I don't know, probably not on the fly, however, or actually, you know what? I'm gonna be saying this right here too. To be saying this, and this is a guess of mine, I don't think it's probably not gonna happen. But I'm probably thinking like, you know, like you're gonna probably play as like, you know, like Grace, which technically you do at the beginning of the game, and then when you encounter Leon, then I'm pretty sure the game will probably say like, you know, like do you want to continue playing as Grace, or do you want to switch out to like Leon's scenario? And if you play as Grace, you probably continue on and on and on and on until like maybe at a certain point to where the game somewhat forces you to like switch to Leon, and then wherever he is at in his scenario or campaign or whatever, you know, um, basically, like you're just gonna continue off like, you know, to where like the game wants you to be with like Leon, and then after that, like, you know, at a certain point, then you switch back to uh Grace, and then you continue off like, you know, where she left off until another certain point to where it's like you switch to Leon again, and then wherever he left off, you go ahead and continue his own thing in his scenario. That is technically somewhat my guess, you know? Like this is somewhat, you know, like my guess on like how it would go in this game. Or maybe you switch on the fly, you know, like maybe like, you know, like I said, like as like you keep playing the same character until like at a certain point the game will force you to switch back, you know, to Leon, because he needs to get his scenario started, so he needs to get like going too until he hits a certain point to where the game now forces you to switch back to Grace and continue off where she left off until she hits a certain point within the game, and then after that, back to Leon again. So continue where he left off until like both of you'll like reach your goals, and that's about it, you know. And that's really what I'm technically like, you know, like thinking of, you know, like literally. It is what I'm technically somewhat like thinking of, you know, like how it would go and how it would be. And I'm thinking of that, you know. Um, you know what? I just realized something here. Hang on. Huh. I just noticed something. He has something like right here on his neck. Like, I just noticed that. Yeah, it's like something like, you know, like you can see like his skin, like, you know, like going like darkish. That's weird. And we know he wears his jacket, he wears a glove. And yeah, it's something like this, like right here. Because I'm pretty sure like nobody probably even like saw this right here, but yeah, you see like this right here. I don't know if it's like um well this stuff like right here where we see like in this scene, or maybe like he must have got like blood on him, and like that's probably like dried blood on his neck. I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised if if it's something like this like right here, like literally. Huh. That's also another mystery too. Like how he got this like mark like right here. I mean, does he somehow like get infected with like another virus again? Like what happened like RE4, where he ends up getting like infected with the Las Plagas with Ashley too, and he has to like maybe like try to find a way like to find a cure. Because I just noticed that after like talking, and we're seeing like right here. Hmm. I know somebody's gonna probably tackle this, but I'm already tackling it right now. So yeah, like he has it here, but you can barely see it because it's dark. But yeah, I can see like a little bit of it, like right around here. But when he actually comes out of the car, I don't even know if he has it on or not, or if it's on, like his neck. You know? Let me see. Yeah, that's when he appears in. No, it doesn't look like he has it on his neck right here. Nah, I don't think he does. Like, I'm looking at, the bottom of his neck, and it doesn't look like he has it, like, on his neck somehow. And let me see. Right around here, like, when he confronts Grace. Well, fuck, I can barely make it out. Hang on. Let's do 1080p. Yeah, I don't know. Because, again, it's kind of dark, but I can barely make it out. Like the mark on his neck, which is like right there. And then kind of see this right here. Then right around here. Then right around here. Now it's right there. Or maybe it could have been. I mean, there's got to be some kind of story of like, how he got this like right here, you know? Because that's gonna be a great question right there, man. Like this big, like, like his skin is like turning all like blackish and stuff. I mean, unless like like maybe he got bitten and it's probably like like damage, something like that. I don't really know because this is like literally a guess because I just noticed this and I don't really know. I don't know. Like maybe it could be like like a damage like he got from like one of the zombies, however, and maybe he confronts this like enemy. But if that did happen, like I mean, wouldn't like his like I don't know his jacket and his like shirt wouldn't got like something like scuff marks, whatever, Because I mean, technically, from what I'm thinking of in like Resident Evil 2 remake, um, technically you do get to see him like get damaged, like that does like carry on, but I don't know like in the cutscenes like he still has like like the damage like done, or I don't know. So this could be anybody guesses. It could be like maybe his skin is like turning into something like this right here, and he has to find like a cure. Or it could have been like, a damage that was done from one of the enemies he confronted. It's basically it's basically like, like two different guesses, about what the hell is on Leon's neck and how he got that, or like, is it gonna be like, like Resident Evil 4 type of thing again, to where he's infected and he has to find like a cure before it's too late type of thing, you know? So I don't know. I don't know. But this is like, something that like, well, people are gonna probably like, figure out, you know, like definitely figure out, like what the hell is going on with Leon. And I'm hoping, it doesn't have to be like, to the point to where like he got infected again and it's like Resident Evil 4 all over again. Or it could be damage from like an enemy. It could be any of those two. It could be literally be any of those two right there in Requiem. So I think what we could do now is just like kind of like wait until like like maybe like I don't know, somebody probably like maybe like discovers like like what's going on like Neon's neck like right here, because there's no shadow like around his like his collar, no shadow like from his hair. That's literally on his neck like right here, right here, you know. So who's to say who's to know? Who's to say who's to know? I don't know. It could be any of those two, or like whatever. It could be like whatever. But anyways, I think that's about it for the breakdown on the whole Requiem uh, trailer. And we're actually got to see like like Leon. We got to see more of his gameplay. Uh, we got to see like more about the story with Grace, and we finally know the pretty sure the main antagonist like found out his name already, Victor Gideon, who was the person who bought this like mansion here, or the hospital, or whatever it could be, you know. And we finally that like mm, I'm pretty sure he's trying to bring Umbrella back again, but we want to know like what his connection like with Grace and Project Alphys, and also like bringing back Umbrella again, because we know there's like a thing called Neo Umbrella, but it feels like that he was probably working with Umbrella, and now he's trying to bring it back again, from what I'm seeing here. And maybe like like in a Sony State of Play, you know, like maybe somewhat in a Sony State of Play, we'll probably get like more gameplay of like Grace, and then more, and then like, well, actually more gameplay of Grace, and then we finally get to see like like more with Leon's too. And you know what, I'm pretty sure that's probably what's gonna happen, because the game is coming out around the end of February, and January is just literally people just hoping to see like anything in a future state of play, either in January or late January or early February, and just to see like like more about like their gameplay, Leon's gameplay, and Grace's gameplay, and I would also think like like more story, and I don't know if they're gonna probably like maybe reveal like this right here too, like what's on his neck, you know. Like I said before, it could be like he's infected and his like body like is like maybe succumbing a little bit and a little bit like to like the virus like that he was infected with, or it could have been bite damage like from one of the zombies. It could be any one of those two right there. So anybody could take a shot of it. Anybody could take a guess like like about this thing right here, and just to see. But I'm pretty sure, like, we'll probably get our answer, like, at a future state of play, somewhere in January or very early at the beginning of February. So, um, yeah. Once again, pretty cool. Like, we got Leon back again in Resident Evil 9 Requiem, which is pretty cool. Um, we get to see more Grace. We get to see, like, about like some story. We finally got the name of the main antagonist of the game, and all I can say is just wait until state of play happens. We'll probably, hopefully, we do get more with Resident Evil 9 Requiem in the coming months before the game is released. So that's all we can do now. That's all we can do now. But I'm so glad like Leon's back, and I'm so glad he is still a goddamn badass. He's a super cop, man. A goddamn badass super cop.